Okay, for the fraction style problem, I'm going to choose number 16. That's on page 448. All right, and we're going to read it first. It says the denominator of a fraction is 9 more than the numerator. If the numerator is decreased by 3 and the denominator is increased by 3, the value of the resulting fraction is 1/4. What is the original fraction? Again, a lot of information. Definitely you can get confused. I'm going to show you how to organize it and unconfuse you. You might think about looking at example 3 before I get into this one. It'll use some of the same terminology, some of the same techniques that I'm going to show you here. Okay, just like in the first problem where I talked about the number versus the digit, here we're going to talk about, sometimes they're talking about the parts of the fraction. Sometimes they're talking about the fraction. Okay, a common mistake for students to make in this section is to write a fraction when the problem is just talking about the numerator. For instance, I'm just going to make something random up, so I'll put it on a new page. If I'm talking about the fraction 5/7 and I say the numerator of the fraction, I'm only talking about the number 5. Okay, 5 is the numerator. If I'm talking about the denominator of the fraction, I'm only talking about 7. That's the denominator. If I'm talking about the value of the fraction, that's 5/7, the value of the fraction. Okay, so I'll show you how that's going to apply as we go through problem 16. So let's back this up. Where am I at? Right there. The first statement says that the denominator of a fraction is 9 more than the numerator. That statement is not talking about any values of fractions at all. We're merely talking about the different parts of a fraction. So we're talking about a denominator and a numerator. So let's label those. So let's say D equals the denominator, N equals the numerator. Once we have our variables, it's really easy to translate directly into an equation. It says the denominator of a fraction is 9 more than the numerator. 9 more than the numerator. That's equation 1, real easy. We have not once talked about the value of the fraction, so therefore we have no fraction in our equation. Okay, and the next statement, I think we're going to talk about the value of an equation here. The value of the fraction here. Let's find out. It says if the numerator is decreased by 3, so the numerator is decreased by 3, and the denominator is increased by 3. Okay, well, I don't know where they're going to want that yet. I'm going to read it forward a little bit. The value of the resulting fraction. Oh, the resulting fraction. So we are actually talking about a fraction now. So if the numerator is decreased by 3 and the denominator is increased by 3, the resulting fraction is 1/4, or the value of the resulting fraction, not the resulting fraction, but the value of it is 1/4. Keep in mind the resulting fraction could be 2/8 or 3/12, okay, but its value would be 1/4. So now we have two equations, two variables, just where we want to be. The second equation looks a little painful since we have a fraction with variables in it. We can fix that issue by doing a little cross products. Okay, remember, cross products being this thing, multiplying the means and extremes is actually what they're called. So we can do 4 times n minus 3 is going to equal 1, which I don't need to write, but I will. 1 times d plus 3. And I can simplify that before we get started. So 4n minus 12 is going to equal d plus 3. All right, so now we have two more manageable equations. We have equation 1 back up there that is solved for D. And so again, we're going to use our substitution, which ends up being a pretty common one for these types of problems, to use substitution. So into equation 2, we will substitute. So equation 2 looks like 4n minus 12 equals, and instead of D, remember, we're doing our substitution. Alright, and now we're going to solve for n. So we have 4n minus 12 equals n plus 12. Those 12s do not cancel out here. Don't be mistaken, because one of them is being subtracted, one of them is being added. I'm going to subtract n from both sides, leaving me 3n. At the same time, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. So I'm going to get 24. Okay, that was a double move there. So I subtracted this n, moved it over to the left, and then I added 12, moved it over to the right. So now we have 3n equals 24. We're going to divide both sides by 3. We think that the numerator of this fraction is going to be 8. We think. I'm going to plug that into equation 1, make it real easy. 8 plus 9 equals the denominator. So the denominator we think is 17. So we think our fraction is 8 over 17. We think. Let's read the words of the problem, see if we agree. The denominator of a fraction is 9 more than the numerator. Check. That works. If the numerator is decreased by 3, that would make it 5. And the denominator were increased by 3, that would make it 20. The value of the resulting fraction is 1/4. That is a true statement. So now we know that this is the correct answer. 8 over 17. Let's make sure that they want the fraction. What is the original fraction? 8 over 17, and that is it. Notice in all three of those questions, I double-checked my answer with the words of the problem. That's very important. Please do that. You can go back to any of those videos if you need extra practice when you're working on your homework. Your homework for tonight, along with watching these videos, is to do problem number 10 on page 447. So homework number 10 on page 447. It looks very similar to my first example in part 1 of the videos. So if you need help, go back to that. It also looks similar to example 1 in the book. All right. Enjoy.